Who is going to be the next president of the European Commission? This is what we'll find out after the elections. But today, the parties are presenting their elected Spitzenkandidaten who are going to debate. Which is interesting because what is a Spitzenkandidat and what is a Spitzensystem? Is it even legitimate? This is what we're going to try to find out because two candidates today aren't represented. Those are the ones from ID and ECR. The Spitzenkandidat system isn't widely accepted yet, but it is by most parties here in the European Parliament. It basically means that every party is bringing forward their ideal candidate for European Commissions, so that once you go to the ballot and vote, you know who you're voting for as well to be potentially the new president of the European Commission. Now, once the biggest party is known, then they can present their number one candidate and it will be either accepted or rejected by the European Council. It is quite complex, to be honest, and what's even more complex is that the Spitzenkandidat is nowhere to be found in the actual treaties. Some say it was meant to be like this after the Treaty of Lisbon in 2007, but ID and ECR disagree with this. They say, however, that it's actually not up to the Parliament, but up to the Council to elect the candidate for the presidency. To make it even more complicated, it said our current president, Ursula von der Leyen, was actually never presented as a candidate for the Commission. She was elected behind closed doors by the European Council, which raises the question on how legitimate it is. And this year, once again, Ursula von der Leyen is not to be found on the ballot.
Mr. Schmidt reminded you of three criteria you put forward, being pro-European, pro-rule of law, among others. The question is, does Ms. Meloni, Prime Minister of Italy, and her party meet these criteria, according to you?
So I have been working very well with Giorgia Meloni in the European Council, as I do with all the heads of state and government. This is my task as President of the Commission. Now, the topics we're going to offer, there we're going to see whether those who are pro-European, and she is clearly pro-European, against Putin, she's been very clear on that one, and pro-rule of law, if this holds, and then we offer to work together.
Okay, so then you offer to work together, even if some of your current partners in the Commission say that's a red line, we may not support your candidacy for the European Commission presidency.
We have to build a majority in the European Parliament for all the topics to bring Europe forward, to have a strong Europe. And as we know, the European Parliament is very different from national parliaments. It is not as such that the group votes unanimously, but you have some who vote for the law, some against, some abstain. So it is always that you come with an offer, and this offer is for those who want to bring Europe forward. And this is exactly what I'm planning to do, actually, which I have done this mandate too.
Okay,
because at the very beginning, there was not a clear majority at all.
No.
And for example, if you take the climate law...
But just to make sure that I understand you correctly, you are preparing to work together with the ECR, with...
That's not what I've said.
I
want to be very clear, this is not what I've said.
Okay.
I'm speaking about members of the European Parliament. I want to see where they group themselves. And then we work with the groups that are clearly pro-European, pro-Ukraine, against Putin, and for the rule of law.
Just to double check, Ms. Meloni's policies on LGBTQI+, for example, don't bother you?
I have a complete different approach.
Okay, but that's not a red line, that's not a...
I'm not speaking of groups, I'm speaking of parliamentarians. That will go to different groups, and we will see, as we have seen with the discussion of the candidates, that it's not clear how the different groups will be composed and how they will settle themselves. And therefore, you have to choose principles and be very clear on these principles. Let me give an example for...
Very briefly, because I have one more question for you.
I want to give one example for majorities to build. At the very beginning, the climate law was existential for the European Green Deal. The Greens did not vote with us because they wanted more. Okay, that's their decision. But we would not have had a majority if I would not have built a broad majority within the European Parliament. And this is how the Parliament works, clearly.
We just watched the debates, or I'm not even sure we can call it a debate, because to start off with, ID and ECR were not even represented. They were not even invited to participate in these debates. Second of all, a real debate is between when people are clashing, but we could not really see a clash within the parties. There was mostly consensus on actually all of the topics, which was migration, digitalization, the Green Deal. But what they did agree on, however, most of all, is the fear of the rise of the far right.
There cannot be any compromise with the far right and its agenda. We must prevent these people from coming to power. And that's why I was really shocked, Mrs. von der Leyen, hearing you in Maastricht saying it depends on the outcome of the elections, whether you will go in coalition with them or collaborate with them. And at the same, I must say, Mr. Gotze, I'm shocked by that, what I hear from the Netherlands. It cannot be that liberal parties ally with the far right. But secondly, I strongly believe that the core of the problem of the far right is the social question. And unless we give dignified lives, decent housing, and secure jobs to the people, we will not be able to defeat the far right in Europe.
The fact that Geert Wilders formed a coalition with the VVD sparked an outrage. And it was for sure one of the highlights that was discussed during this debate. They are demanding that Renew would kick out the VVD, which is interesting. And then, of course, if there was a little bit of clash, it was a clash with Ursula von der Leyen. She really took the most heat. And she was asked several times if she would be willing to work together alongside ECR. And this time, she wasn't as fast to say yes as she was during the last debates. I think it was a pretty boring debate. We didn't see new perspectives, but it shows us that the Spitzenkandidat system is failing. So if there is one thing that this debate showed us, is that we need to think of a better system of choosing the president of the European Commission. Is this the right one, or should we just leave it up to the Council? Thank you so much for watching. This was Riks Europe.